What is this place, Utica? How would you describe this city? I'd ask this question all the time when I first moved to central New York. Most of the time I got answers like, Utica sucks. Or Utica's a hole. I would say about 70% of the conversations I had about Utica were negative. Don't worry, everybody. This is common for Rustbelt cities like Utica. Many of our northern communities that relied heavily on manufacturing suffered from an identity crisis. Mills and manufacturing plants shut down in Utica. Our friends and neighbors scattered to the suburbs. Many of you might remember images like this of downtown Utica. It makes you long for the good old days, and I don't blame you. Places throughout the country hit tough times. They lost this type of downtown. It created this can't-do attitude. This attitude is not good for making places. And the only way to change it is through perseverance and a willingness to change your perceptions. I need your help tonight. I need you all to be willing to look at the world through the eyes of a placemaker. Placemaking is a process where a community capitalizes on its assets, inspiration, and potential to create public spaces that contribute to people's health, happiness, and well-being. You know, when I was growing up, I didn't care much about making places, unless you count me playing with Legos for hours. So when I went to grad school to study landscape architecture, number one, my parents were really confused. But you can also imagine why I struggled with looking at spaces with a critical eye. I desired some sort of guideline to help me determine whether a place was going to be great or successful. So I turned to our good friend Google. And through my search, I came across this, the power of 10 plus. The power of 10 plus comes from the Project for Public Spaces. It's a group of people dedicated to placemaking. And the power of 10 plus is a concept where placemakers try to create 10 or more elements to draw people into a space. And those elements can be social or physical. And though physical elements are really important, like aesthetics, they can't stand alone. There are a ton of beautiful places that are underutilized. The design of our spaces requires a social consciousness to get people feeling compelled to be connected to the physical environment. And though some places might not be large enough to get to 10, they do their best to get to that point as close as they can. And that's what placemakers try to accomplish. So now that we kind of understand a little bit about the power of 10 plus, let's see how we can use it to look at a place in Utica. Let's check out Bite Bakery. It's on Lower Genesee Street in Franklin Square. And whenever I walk up to Bite Bakery, I can immediately see three elements. First is off-street parking. You can see in the reflection, and you know, the cars are a little bit in the picture. Outdoor seating, and a beautiful building facade. But there are two little less obvious elements. The first of those is the potential to see and interact with people. It's those human interactions that get people feeling connected to Bite as a space. The second of the less obvious elements is the building facade and how it extends Bite out into the community by creating an appealing wall along Genesee Street and Franklin Square. And our streets and roads are the spatial connections to other places and events. I think of the Boilermaker, one of the premier 15Ks in the country that happens right here in Utica. And during this event, Utica's spaces are its handshake to the rest of the world. So having beautiful parks and storefronts conveys a positive message about Utica. Where would you rather run? The Parkway in Utica? Or this stretch of Erie Boulevard in Syracuse? The Parkway wins that race. It also illustrates the importance of streetscapes as a key fifth element. So let's kind of toddle on inside now. And I want to talk about my uncle for a second. He's a profound thinker and prolific eater. And he once told me, you don't want to eat somewhere with no one in it. The food or service might be bad. Makes a lot of sense. Simple, but as you can tell, Bite doesn't suffer from this. I attribute their success to these two guys. Jay and Doug Allen Leonard, the owners. They're the nicest guys in the world. And if they asked me to, I'd jump behind the counter and start slinging coffee. Their attitude is easily the sixth element. It's that social placemaking element that brings people in and gets them to keep coming back. And then they make you never want to leave by hitting you with their 7th element. The great food. That's all I'm going to say about that, Southwest rap. But when we walk in, and I see a successful space like Bite Bakery, I always wonder how people started going there to begin with. So, me being curious, I asked Jay. He told me that this used to be Pete's Music House, and that he and Doug use history and nostalgia to generate curiosity. And curiosity is that powerful 8th element that drove people through the doors on their opening day. Speaking of going through doors, I love walking in here. The aesthetic is so unique and cool. And the aesthetic as a whole is the 9th element, but it's also the umbrella for other important things that are going on. The space is laid out to be highly functional. Garbage cans are nearby, keeps the place clean. You can visibly see where the condiments are. And the seating, boom! There's our 10th element. See, sorry if I scared some of you out of chairs. There might be a changed pair of pants in the back, but I needed to emphasize the importance of having adequate seating without it being too adequate. How long have you ever stayed anywhere, besides a concert, where there wasn't enough seating? Or on the other end of the spectrum, where there's so much seating, you get those awkward excuse me moments when you need someone in the back of their chair. Bite doesn't have this. The space always feels full, and the seats create a clear line of sight to your ultimate goal, the counter. And though the way is clear, it contains the last 2 elements I want to highlight, the art and music. Whenever I walk in anywhere, I always look around to see how the space is accented. These are the parts that tie aesthetics together. So I try to focus on the chalkboard art at Bite and the industrial textures that allow me to get lost for a while. And while I'm waiting for my Southwest rap, I listen for music. And the music of conversation. Have you ever been anywhere that's so quiet you can hear your own heartbeat? Creepy. See? Pretty creepy right there. That's why art and music are important elements 11 and 12. They elevate our experiences by combining seamlessly with all the prior elements to create a great place. So now that we see how we can use the power of 10 plus to look at the world, let's look at some of our public spaces. Great public spaces provide elements like fountains, benches, and garbage cans in logical locations. They have trees and shrubs and monuments to look at. Sound placemaking gets people to want to walk through a park to a destination or sit on a bench to enjoy a cup of coffee. Our public spaces require people and activities to survive. And often these activities are provided by private individuals branching out into our public spaces, like the guys at Bite Bakery. They teamed up with Made in Utica and Nomad Cinemas to create the Franklin Square film series. They turned this alley in Franklin Square into this movie theater. They gave this alley the power of 10 plus. You know, and whenever I talk to placemakers like Jay and Doug, I always find that placemaking is rarely easy. There will always be naysayers and no money. But placemakers don't look for problems. They look for solutions. Just ask Chris Sunderland, a great placemaker in Utica. I think you might have heard of him already. Thank you, Rue. Chris is probably gonna murder me with a hatchet for this. But you gave me free reign over your images, Chris. This is what you get, buddy. Chris is the executive director of the Midtown Utica Community Center, also known as MUCK. Chris and his active members, known as Mucksters, struggle with finances, landlord issues, no off-street parking, and an historical landmark designation on their building that prevents them from doing any major alterations. And when you look at the place, you're like, how can this be one of the best places in the Cornhill area of Utica? Well, it is. National Geographic went there to cover a story, for crying out loud. And in their first 6 months, they had over 3,000 contact hours. And the reason is, Chris focused on those social placemaking elements that made his members feel connected to the space. And he knew this was super important because most of his members are refugees. And in order for them to feel at home in the new country, he wanted to root them in a community space. And that's why he encourages them to engage and participate. And that's most likely why they conduct their own study sessions and hold dance classes and organize community cleanups. They evolve muck into what they need it to be. And that's how they hit their power of 10 plus elements. And you know what? They also overcome their financial issues by their high level of engagement. The mucksters go out and reach out to others to donate their time, money, and talents to help muck survive. Every space should strive for this level of participation. You know, Utica is continuously making great places like Bite and Muck. Because in order to get a great city, you need great places. Enough great places, you get great neighborhoods. And enough great neighborhoods, you get a great community. That's why I know Utica's in a time of great transition. There's too many great places for it not to be. So, where am I? It's the title of my talk, so I better answer the damn question. I feel like I'm in a city of placemakers. We all need each other to step up and become placemakers. It has to happen. It's the only way we're going to be able to cast off this Rustbelt city mantle once and for all. Look, you don't have to be a designer. You can be a doer, investor, or a resource person. You know, when I started designing, I was drawing like this. I was 23 years old. Not 3. Actually, I think my 3-year-old niece could do better. Don't worry, I got better. A little time, a little practice, I started creating images in places like this. So if I can make this evolution, you all could be placemakers. And if you're still not convinced, I want you all to close your eyes. I want you to think of a place that you love, or a place that you don't love. Think about what you could fix or improve. Think about how long it might take, and who you could reach out to make your idea happen. Now, open up your eyes, take out those cards that were in your program. I want you to write them down. And on your next break, there's going to be boards up front that you can post them on, or I'll provide my email later. You can email me. That exercise was your first step into becoming a placemaker. It's that first spark in lighting your placemaking fire. You recognized an asset, you conjured up some inspiration on what to fix and improve, and you thought of ways to get others engaged. So now, all we need you to do is to capitalize on that idea so it benefits the health, happiness, and well-being of the community. How nice will it be when people ask you, where are you from? And you're like, Utica, and they're like, oh, Utica! I love Utica! Utica's got so many great places and events. Utica is awesome. And you know they mean it. So I ask, these are the cards. Where are you? Are you in a Rust Belt city or a city of placemakers?
Chris Henry, ladies and gentlemen.